Hi, I'm Karen.
And I'm Elise,
Welcome back to Poodle People.
where we talk about all things poodles.
Welcome to Poodle People, the podcast for all dog lovers, not just poodles. I'm Karen Pekarczyk, and I'm your host. I'm a preservation breeder of standard poodles in Lexington, Kentucky, and I've had standard poodles since 2004. My first dogs, Max Lieberman and Jane Austen, completely changed my life and sold me on this breed, which I think is the best breed in the world. And typically, since it scores in the top 5 of most popular breeds, a lot of you agree. So, just to give you an idea of the podcast, if you are here for the first time, I do cover a lot of poodle specific topics, but they often are broad and apply to any dog. I'm very interested in research and science, so I talk to researchers, scientists, people who are involved in that community, as well as people who are grooming, showing, handling, or training dogs. So if you love dogs, I think you've probably come to the right place, and I'm really glad that you found the podcast.
My guest today on the Poodle People podcast is Anna Marie Schuth. I know Anna Marie because she came to one of my yearly events that's called Poodles in the Park, and I met her there, I think last year. And over the past year, I've gotten to know her on social media. I follow her, and she has this really lovely um, positivity that I wanted to share with everyone. So, Anna Marie, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into dog grooming.
Yeah, so it's kind of this weird accidental, kind of a thing that I fell into it. I was at the time in college and I was going to school for biology. I got my first dog. Her name is Penguin. And I had a professional training background, and so I thought, oh well, she's too young to go to the groomer because she doesn't have all of her vaccines yet, but I'll get some, cheap grooming equipment and I'll just, socialize her to the equipment at home. And then, if I end up, enjoying this, then I can teach myself how to really do it. And if not, she'll at least be really well socialized for, when I do take her to the groomer, whatever groomer I take her to. And I fell in love with it. I started grooming, a couple of my friends' dogs, and I just slowly taught myself how to groom. And then I eventually found a place to apprentice. And that's kind of how that, steamrolled into an actual career. And, fast forward a couple more years and I do it full time and I own my own business doing it. And I just fell in love with it.
That's fantastic. Are you from Kentucky, or have you always worked as a groomer in Kentucky?
I am originally from St. Louis. I came to
Okay.
Kentucky to go to UK to get my Bachelor of Science, which I did finish. I was going to go to optometry school, and then, in the gap year that I was going to study for the OAT, I was grooming full time, and I just decided I would miss it far too much if I gave it up. So I kind of fell into it unintentionally. But I just love it so much. But yes, I've always groomed in Kentucky.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your two dogs.
Yeah, so Penguin is a miniature poodle mix. She is 5. She is also my original service dog. And then Saoirse is my standard poodle who just turned 2. And she is also a service dog. It's kind of weird that I have 2 at the same time. Originally, I got Saoirse to take over when Penguin was diagnosed with cancer. And I didn't know prognosis wise how much time I had left with her, so I figured I'd have to start training as soon as possible. But Penguin has pulled through. She's in full remission. We did, chemotherapy and various other treatments, and she's still here. So I have 2 in working rotation, and I just kind of use whichever, suits the environment better. Sometimes it's more convenient to have a smaller working dog than a larger, but they both do a fantastic job.
That's really cool that you have 2 at the same time, and it is completely amazing. I think because you've posted about this on social media, I feel comfortable asking you about it.
Oh, of course.
Do you Do you mind talking a little bit about Penguin's hemangiosarcoma? Because it's really amazing that you still have her. I am in awe and so happy for you for that.
Oh, I know. I'm so enthusiastic about it. So, I had come home from the gym at the time, and at the time, health wise, I would bring her, to be working while I would go, like 80% of the time. But that day, I was, in a pretty good health stint. So, I felt like I could leave her at home. And I'm honestly really glad that I did because then when I got home, the difference in her behavior was so obvious to me. So,
Mhm.
she didn't greet me when I came home, which is extremely unlike her. And to summarize, very long story short, her gums were pale, so I took her to the ER vet just in case. Her signs were very subtle, but just there was something off, and she ended up having a emergency splenectomy, which the biopsy came back positive, and at the time she was 3 years old. And the I had several vets tell me that it was not worth pursuing any kind of treatment because her hemangiosarcoma is just so aggressive. But I ended up with Cincinnati MedVet, and my veterinary oncologist there had, just said it was shocking how young she is because, it's her hemangiosarcoma is mostly older dogs and it's mostly larger breed dogs. So she's just so small. I mean, she's about 20 pounds. But because we caught it really early and there were no signs of, immediate metastasis, or at least not severe metastasis, we went ahead and we did all 5 rounds of chemotherapy, sirolimus, chlorambucil, buyout, and turkey tail. And then they also have her on a experimental Yale vaccine study. She's still participating in that, but she's been in full remission for about a year and a half. So I'm very very lucky that she's still here and she's thriving. She's still doing great.
That's really wonderful. I think you probably know that I had a very different experience with hemangiosarcoma with
Yes.
my dog Jane Bennett. So, sorry, Jane Austen, not Jane Bennett.
You're
That's her
good.
daughter, Elizabeth Bennett. Um, Jane Austen had hemangiosarcoma. We did the splenectomy and she was doing really well. And then all of a sudden she wasn't. So, hemangiosarcoma is just that silent and deadly disease
Oh yeah.
where, you can just totally miss it and they can drop dead, literally. There are plenty of stories, and I know several people firsthand who have had this disease strike them. So it is something to be aware of. But I'm so pleased for you and Penguin that she's doing well. Do they
And
have
so far so good.
yeah,
Fingers
do they
crossed.
have any kind of prognosis for her? Like how long will she's in remission? So what does that mean really? Like,
So she has
is she
absolutely no signs of cancer at all whatsoever and has consistently had absolutely no signs of cancer whatsoever since, about gosh, I want to say like 6 months into her treatment, they were like, we're comfortable saying she's in remission. And they were very upfront with me about prognosis. I mean, the median survival rate is even with chemotherapy. Well, so they had told me that the most recent scientific study at the time, the median survival rate without chemo was 18 to 60 days post diagnosis, and about 283 days, on median with chemo. We just
yeah.
hit her 2 year anniversary of her diagnosis, and she's still consistently, because for the Yale vaccine study, she has to have X-rays and a blood serum done every 3 months, in
Mhm.
order to qualify for the continued booster vaccines. And all of her scans, she just had scans done last week, and they all came back normal again.
That's fantastic.
So we're
Really. Yeah.
very enthusiastic about it. And she has her, when she was diagnosed and I was mentally going through it, and I was like, the one, obviously there's many things I, would have loved to continue to do with her, but there was the one thing that I was like, wow, I never got her into agility, and I always thought that she would really love it, and I just never got around to it. So when she got into remission, and my brain and my heart were starting to accept that there was hope that she might, still be here, that's when I actually did invest in agility classes, and we're going to our very first agility trial in July. So that'll be really exciting. I'll be probably pretty emotional about that.
That's such a sweet story. It's really fabulous.
Oh yeah.
So, so tell me a little bit about your other dog.
Yes, so Saoirse, I got to train as my next service dog in and amongst all of Penguin's diagnosis. There had been several breeders that luckily I had already been researching standard poodle breeders for my next dog, but originally I had thought it was going to be 5 to 7 years down the line. And actually, your program is one of the programs that was in my list that I was interested in. And when my timeline was moved up so exponentially, I was reaching out to everybody. And I think I had emailed you, but I think that had gotten lost in translation. I don't think that's the best way to communicate. But I was reaching out to all the breeders on my list, and either everybody was either not expecting a litter anytime soon, or their service prospect specific list was pretty far out, which is why I was researching so far in advance, because I was happy to be on a wait list until my time frame moved up. Because at the time Penguin was 3, so I was thinking 5 to 7 years down the line, and then it would take 2ish years to train another dog, for Penguin being retirement age. So I ended up finding Semper Pudellis, which is where Saoirse came out of, and I flew to Arizona to get her. And she does, she titles her dog. She does all of the health testing and the socialization, puppy protocol that I require when I'm looking into a breeder. And she had 2 of the litter test positively on the Volhard test, and I picked between Saoirse and her brother. Normally, she doesn't let people pick, but we talked really extensively, and she's like, I think both of them suit your needs. But personality wise, I ended up picking Saoirse. She's a little bit more of a Velcro dog, and I like that. I like a very affectionate dog. But yeah, it is. She has turned out really well. She does great. She started natural alerting for my dogs are for seizure alert. But she started natural alerting probably about somewhere between 7 and 9 months old. And then we were able to, and Penguin was a natural alerter as well. I actually had Penguin before I ever had any health issues at all whatsoever. And she's kind of slipped into the role of service dog, is kind of very non-traditional. I would never have expected it to happen that way, and I got extremely lucky. But Saoirse, I think, picked it up from one. She comes from a program of dogs that have a long history of producing successful seizure alert dogs. And then also, she was around Penguin when Penguin was alerting, so I think that helped too.
I bet it did. So you also show Sersha, right?
Yes, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I went to Saoirse's breeder, I had said, so my first priority is service work. My second priority is I'm a dog groomer that would love to get into competitive grooming. I'm actually starting to get into that this year. And then maybe I'll do some, conformation in sports, but I can't, guarantee that I'll do that, because at the time, my health was so up and down that I was like, I really don't know how active I could be to do dog sports in Confo. But when Saoirse was about 7 months old, I went to the local UKC venue that I have in Cynthiana, and at the Mason Dixon, club. And I showed up with Saoirse, and I had her in, funky whatever creative cut, and I just kind of meandered around and checked it out and was like, is this something I might want to do? Because I've not really been to a show. And people were extremely welcoming. They, came and they're like, oh my gosh, you're thinking of, showing, like that would be so fun. And people were giving me all sorts of feedback and, advice. And it was just a really wonderful community. And so I decided I did want to show her. So I had to grow her out from, what she was in to a modern. She's a multicolored standard poodle, so she is registered with the AKC, but she can't, as you know, can't show conformation. So we do UKC, and I probably eventually want to do IABCA as well, but we're just doing one thing at a time right now. But she's my first purebred dog, and she's my first conformation dog.
That's exciting. It actually sounds like you're doing more than one thing at a time, because you have 2 service dogs, you're showing one and
Yeah.
using both of them as service pets. So, it doesn't sound like you're slacking at all.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just have such a big long list of 8,000 things that I want to do all the time. Right
Right.
now, I'm limiting each dog to, obviously they work in a service capacity, but I'm limiting them to one sport. So, Penguin is doing agility right now. Saoirse's doing convo. And then she has her championship, and she's 2 legs away from her grand championship. And our next show is at the end of June, so she may or may not get her grand by then. But I think that once she gets her grand, I'll see how I feel, and we might take a break from conformation for a while to do some more creative grooming. And then when I'm doing that, I might get her into another sport. And I think that she would also really love agility, but I might try to diversify and do something else, just so that me as the a handler, I get to, get fun of doing multiple things. So that would be good.
And it is always nice when you can take their coat down and have a bit of a break from, the weekly bathing, the
Oh
grooming all the
yeah.
time, worrying about the rain, the mud, the everything. So
Luckily,
psychologically,
her coat texture is extremely forgiving. I mean, I do give her a weekly bath, but I'm really not worried about her tangling. I really don't have to brush her at all. I just, bathe and blow her out once a week, or once every week to a week and a half, and she's good. I mean, we were going hiking, and she's still good. So, she's got a really nice coarse coat. That's one of the things that judges usually, say, especially because she's a multi, and a lot of the times multis tend to have softer coats, but she has a really nice, breed correct coat. The main feedback that I usually get is that she does have a gay tail. She's got a natural tail that curls all the way over her back. So, some judges take more fault with that than others. Some don't really see that as a detriment to the breed. Some do. It just kind of depends show to show.
right, right. So let's talk a little bit about competition grooming. Tell me what your goals are there and what you're kind of hoping. I know you've been practicing on some different clips and you're excited. I think Saoirse's still in an English saddle, right? Which
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
you don't see an English saddle all the time. So I know you enjoy those kinds of clips. Tell me what you're looking for with competitive grooming and what your aspirations are.
Oh yeah. So the original reason I even got into Convo to begin with is actually to better myself as a dog groomer. So doing conformation has really allowed me to develop my eye when it comes to things like balance, structure, and movement. And I was on another podcast a couple weeks ago, and we talked about this a little bit, but it's so interesting to me that doing conformation with my purebred standard poodle has actually improved all of my grooming, even breeds that are not poodles, even doodles. I mean, I'm grooming mixed dogs, and I can still look at them and say, oh, I could see that obviously you don't have a standard that I'm, breeding you to, or grooming you to, but I could see where, this would make you a more well balanced dog if I groomed you in these ways. So that's kind of developed my eye in that way. And then from that, growth in my career, I want to continue to propel myself into creative grooming and competitive grooming. So in July, I'm going down to Florida to mock comp. So Cami Lewis, Allison Brooks, and Blake Hernandez are hosting a 3-day seminar. And, 2 of the days they're going to go over Asian fusion and, doodle face, grooming. And then the third day we're having a mock comp. So they're going to sit us down and walk us through all of the steps of how competitions work, all of the different types of competitions you can enter, and then we are going to do a competition, and they're gonna walk us through how it works, our timing, give us feedback, and I'm gonna put Penguin back in I had her in a modified Portuguese water dog type cut a little bit ago, and so I'm gonna put her back into that, and it'll be just a really fun experience to get to do. So I'm looking forward to that, and then I'm debating if I want to go and enter Hershey in Pennsylvania in September, which is a really big grooming competition. If I do that, I think I would do Saoirse in her English saddle, but I still have some work to do to perfect that trim. And then there's also the time management aspect of it, where you have a limited amount of time to complete the groom. So with Penguin, I'm a little less worried because I've been grooming her for such a long time, and freestyle Portuguese water dog inspired trim that I'm doing on her is one that I've done before, and I can whip it out really quick and I'm very confident in it. The English saddle, it just takes such a sheer amount of hand scissoring, and well, I mean, so does Penguin's cut, but it just is a lot more of a technically difficult trim that has a lot of factors at play. So I'm a little concerned about being able to do that in an allotted time frame, but I just think I want to challenge and push myself, and it's how I learn best, I think.
So this is a fun fact. Cami Lewis was going to be my guest this week, and we
Oh my gosh,
recorded.
really?
Yeah, we recorded about half of it, but I don't know if it was my Wi-Fi or hers, but something like I don't know how many times we lost the connection
Oh
over and over, and finally I was like, okay, we just have to bail on this. And she's at a show, so she'll be on next week or the week after as soon as we can get together after she finishes the show she's at.
Oh, what a
Um,
small
so I
world. I'll
thought
be
you,
excited to
yeah,
listen.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't wait to talk to her, or talk to her when we don't have aggravation of losing the connection and having to start over,
Yeah.
or
Oh
me talking
no.
to talking to the microphone and then all of a sudden realizing that there's no one there. So these things
Oh.
happen. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that event will be really exciting. It sounds like it's a really great way to develop your skills and get a lot of feedback from really great people.
Well, and I've had several people, especially in the last couple of weeks, actually, I've had several people reach out on my accounts and ask if I compete, or ask me advice on competing, and I had to be like, I've actually never competed before. But I think it's
Oh, that's
because
funny.
I've started getting a lot of really excited breed standard clients. So, I now have several show dogs that I groom. I have a lot of dogs that get more elaborate creative cuts. And I do have color clients as well. I have two red toy poodles that currently one's dyed to look like a zebra and the other one's dyed to look like a leopard. And, it's fun to get to do all that. And then I think that people see that and they assume that they are dogs that I also compete with. And I say, one day
Yeah.
we will. I did a standard poodle and like a modified. It was kind of like a fusion between a Bolero and a German, so it was kind of a fun retro, style of a trim. And
I
he's
love
really
those
fun.
trims.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah.
love the old trims. They're really a lot of fun. Um,
I wish that you could show them in conformation. I mean, I guess technically in UKC, you technically could because there's no disqualifications for grooming. In the United Kennel Club, but you really only see the continental, modified continental, German, modern, and English saddle. And then some people will show in a sporting clip, especially if a female has recently whelped a litter. But you don't see like the retro trims like that. I would love to be able to do convo in that.
the retro trims are so fun.
Oh
Um,
yes.
they're not always flattering in the same way that, you know, our eye does not find them as flattering as the continental or the modified, but they still are fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I love the creativity. I mean, I think the first thing that I'm gonna do on Saoirse once I'm done showing her, and once I've decided that I'm going to take a break from the English saddle, is I want to carve wings into the side of her body and dye them blue, and that's been a goal for a really long time. So it'll be really fun to get to do.
Cool. So tell me a little bit more about your business. What you mentioned some of the dogs you have. What how is your business developed? What kind of clients do you get? What is the makeup of the dog population where you are?
Oh yeah, of course. So I'm in a really wonderful spot and place to be in career wise because I like to diversify. So, people in the grooming industry talk a lot about burnout, and it is a very relevant issue in dog grooming. It's a very physical career. A lot of the times people land themselves in jobs that are, not balancing work life, very well, especially in like a corporate setting. I've been lucky to avoid a corporate setting my entire grooming career. I've never done corporate. But I started at the salon that I'm currently at is the Barkside Groomery. And I had apprenticed several other places first, but then I landed there as a W-2 employee part-time while I was in college. And then when my gap year before I was going to go to optometry school is when I said, oh, I'm going to take this opportunity to work here full time for at least one summer before, I have to move on to, what was supposed to be my career. And then, Kelly's the owner of the Barkside. She transitioned the salon from W-2 to booth rent. And so in that process, she helped me open up my own LLC. We divided so that to do booth rent in the grooming industry properly and legally, you are all your own individual business owners with your own LLC. You file your own taxes. You have your own separate booking system, clientele, everything. So I just rent the use of a table and access to the tubs and things like that. But we're all our own individual entities, and I really love that setup because it's really enabled me to be really specific about the clientele that I develop. So I have a professional a background in professional dog training. So I actually do really love working with behavioral cases. But knowing that I already have health issues and grooming is not easy on the body, I am really intentional about only taking on so many behavioral cases at a time. So I like to consider what I do rehabbing dogs. So I'll take a behavioral case and I say, in order to, be my client, you have this dog with this behavioral issue, this aggression issue, etc. We're going to work together and I'm going to get us to the point that your dog is no longer considered a behavioral case if we can. So, for example, I have a doodle client that came to me and she said, in her initial message before I've conversed with her at all, she said, I have a 2-year-old doodle. He's a rescue. I have no idea if he had ever been groomed before the rescue took him in. Honestly, based on the pelted, matted shave down that he had, I would not be surprised at all if he had never been groomed in 2 years of life. He's highly aggressive towards strangers, and she told me, I will bring him. I'm already working with a professional trainer at home. I would love to get grooming equipment just to socialize him to at home between visits. I will sit in this parking lot for 4 hours if you need me to, so that if he's too aggressive, I can immediately walk in and get him from you. And so to me, that says this client is extremely intentional about what she's doing with this aggressive and dangerous dog. I mean, he is a dangerous dog, or at least he was. And so I said, yes, I'm happy to try. We'll work together with him. And he did, the very first visit, I didn't make eye contact with him in the lobby at all. I stayed, a couple feet away while I was talking with his mom, and he did try to bite. And we were able to work up to, I was able to groom him, and we go really slow. We take a lot of breaks. When I'm doing a behavioral case, I take a lot of videos where I show the pet parent, like, hey, this is what I'm doing when he behaves this way. This is how you can help socialize him at home. I give a ton of homework to my behavioral, clients. And now I've gotten that dog to the point that he is actually very affectionate with me off the table. On the table, he has his moments, but for about 90% of the groom, he's pretty comfortable and he does a good job. So he has made an immense amount of progress in the 3 years that I've been working with him. Really proud of him. But I'll only take on, however so many behavioral clients at a time. But I like to diversify between my behavioral clients, like my rehab dogs, breed standard trimming. I'm starting to get some really good momentum specializing in that. And then creative grooming. And I do regular pet grooming as well, but ideally, I'm really trying to fill the niches of behavioral cases and rehabbing, creative grooming, and breed standard trimming. Lately, I'm trying to think. Well, I have an Airedale that I've started doing that's a show dog, so that has been great for breed standard trimming. I've got a red Irish setter and an English cocker that are both show dogs that I do. And then I've got an Afghan that's a recent client. She's a retired show dog. She doesn't currently get, a full Afghan coat. But I'm rehabbing her coat actually because she'd been spayed and she had been shaved when she was retired. So I'm hand stripping her again to try and recover her coat texture as much as possible. But yeah, no, I love having the diversity. I also find that very few groomers in the area have expertise in hand stripping, so that's also a fantastic, avenue that I've found myself into.
Right. So let's do a little I don't know what to call this, but like a little round robin kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
What kind of dryer do you use?
I like Canine too.
Okay.
I like
Do
the
you have a
Canine
forced dryer?
threes. I'm sorry.
Do you have a forced heat dryer as well?
Yes, my Canine 2 is my force dryer.
Okay.
The velocity dryer.
Sorry. Do you have a heated dryer as well? A stand dryer?
Sorry, I understand what you're saying. I have a Jirpet. I'm not really sure if I'm pronouncing that right. JIR. And it's a neck dryer. And that one has
One of
heat.
the Is it that new one that wraps around the neck?
Yes, yeah. They had actually gifted that to me. I don't use it on most of my pet grooming actually, but I do definitely use it on dogs like Saoirse, where they have certain areas as I'm fluff drying. I find the
Yeah,
average pet dog that I'm doing doesn't stay still enough for me to be able to use a neck dryer. But a lot of my
right.
clients that have been coming to me for a really long time that I've trained to be really good for the dryer, I can definitely do it with them. So that's good. So I like to fluff dry
I
on my longer coated dogs.
I think the dryer that goes around your neck is such a brilliant thing because I have always been amazed at people who could actually manage to hold a dryer either under their chin or in their armpit. I just
I'm an
don't
armpit
have
girly.
the Oh man, I can't do it. I get aches and pains. I definitely can't do it. Um, so so I think that that is a very good thing. What's your favorite slicker?
It's so hot take. I do love the Chris Christensen, which is the classic that everyone goes to.
Yep.
Actually, I have that one and I do love it and is one of my go-tos. But Warren London has a slicker brush that is half the price. And honestly, I actually like a little bit better. I feel like it's a little bit gentler on show coat in particular. So if I have a dog that, I'm using a slicker brush to get out tangles, which also Equus has a survivor gel. Magic. It melts mats out. It's phenomenal. I love that stuff and I'm obsessed with it. I tell everybody that can hear. I don't have a sponsorship or anything. I'm just really obsessed with it. But if I have a dog with tangles, I usually will go to my Chris Christensen. But if I'm working with a coat that I want to try and be really gentle with and I need something a bit more than a pin brush, I will go for my Warren London slicker.
Is it a slicker that has just straight pins, or are they bent like the Chris Christensen?
It's the same setup as the Chris Christensen coral. It's bent. They're about the same length and tine. For whatever reason, I just feel like the material and the make, it's just slightly gentler on the coat. I
Yep.
usually try to avoid using a slicker on Saoirse's show coat, but if I have to use one, I go with the Warren London one.
I actually like a slicker that has straight pins. I have the Chris and I think I have three different Chris Christensens.
Oh,
But I
okay.
like one from Ashley Craig that has straight pins, and it's definitely gentler and it's easier
Hmm.
on, like, if you're trying to get into the armpit, there are three sizes, so you
Oh,
always have
nice.
something that fits where whatever body part you're doing. And I find that I can use it on bracelets really easily and the tail.
Hmm.
um so um Favorite detangler?
I like the Botanica avocado detangling spray for light tangling, but then that Equus Survivor gel is my go-to for any type of tangling that's a little bit heavier. It seems kind of odd because it's a gel, so you would think that in putting it in the coat, you would gunk the coat up really bad. But if you just put
Mhm.
the tiniest little pea-sized amount on whatever mat or tangle you're working on, and I take a slicker and I brush it, just melts out like butter, and then it doesn't leave a residue. I don't really know the science behind it, but it's phenomenal. I love that stuff.
I might need to get that stuff. I always
Honestly,
like
yeah, you
trying.
should try it. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Um, it's really interesting to try new things. Like, I just switched from using Chris Christensen shampoo, and I went back to Crown Royale, which I used earlier on, and Mary's coat is very different with it. It's not
Okay.
as white, and I had kind of thought that I had a really white cream dog because everyone asks, everyone thinks she's a white dog and she's actually a cream. And in
Yeah.
switching, I was reminded that she actually is a cream dog.
That's so funny.
She's not quite as white. I mean, she's still quite white, but not, paper white
More
the way she
toned,
was for
yeah.
Christians. Yeah. Um, Favorite scissors?
I like Magix, Magix. I don't know, I talked with my sharpener about it. I feel like they're my brand of shears that have lasted the longest in terms of being able to be resharpened over and over again. And
Hmm.
not, losing their edge. And then I feel like they last a longer time between sharpenings as well. Like I've tried other brands that I felt went dull really fast. They're phenomenal. They've got a lot of really nice options too. Because I'm a groomer and I work on so many different breeds, I have a lot of different settings that I'm like, okay, so on this dog, I'm gonna just use straight up straights the entire time. I usually gravitate towards just straight up using straights or curves for like 90% of the groom. Certain dogs I'll use thinners. On Saoirse's coat, I've got a pair of 9-inch Magix straights that I whack off any and all coat, as I'm going. And then I have a pair of Kenchi chunkers that
Hmm.
I like to do my finish work with her, and it just is a really nice blend. My Kenchis are really nice. I would like to get more from their line as well. And I've actually not had to have my Kenchi chunkers sharpened, and I've had them for over a year. But also,
Nice.
I do utilize them a little bit less than some of my other, my straights and my curves I
Sure.
utilize on almost every single dog. But yeah, Magix and Kenchi have been my favorites. I do really like Foxy Roxy as well.
I love the Foxy Roxy website. I mean, it's just so charming. I
Oh
think they have
yeah.
a great idea. Everything about it is really nice.
Well, I
Um,
think their
so
subscription service is really nice for people building up a collection too, when
yeah,
they don't
yeah,
yet have a ton of shears.
yep. So if you were going to offer advice to people who are grooming at home, either trying to learn or in between grooms, what would you tell them that that the groomer knows that they probably don't know?
So usually, and I like to consider myself an open resource to any and all of my clients. I like to do a lot of education, and I actually really love teaching people how to groom. I would love to bridge that gap more. I've started offering, I haven't advertised it, but I've started offering virtual bathing lessons where I do a
Mhm.
Zoom call and I bathe Saoirse, and then I walk the person through, hey, here's how to properly bathe, dry your dog. These are different products you use, different, brushing techniques. But generally speaking, the main things that I go to, well, we'll talk poodles because different dog breeds will require different, grooming needs. But if I had someone come to me and they have a poodle and they wanting to keep them relatively long and they want to maintain them between visits, the very first thing I tell them is you need to learn how to properly bathe your dog and you need to have a really quality high velocity dryer. I think the main mistake a lot of people will make when they're learning to maintain a longer coated dog at home is that they'll get they'll bathe the dog, but they don't know that they need to get the tangles out before the bath, or they don't know that they need to have a high power velocity dryer to blow out tangles, or they're using the wrong brushes. So I always tell people invest in a really good velocity dryer. Some dogs you could get away with a lower powered one, and I do like. I've got a Schernbau, like a smaller Schernbau, that's like a lesser powerful one. That's
Mhm.
great for smaller breeds of dogs, I think. But if you're going, you know, head first into a standard poodle in full show coat, you really need something with a bigger kick. So I usually recommend people a canine 2 or 3, and I say I know that they're really expensive, but in my experience, most of the time when people get a lower dryer, they're ending up replacing it with a higher powered one in the next, 6 months because they're so fed up with how long it takes to dry their dog. So that's with a longer coated dog anyway. It'll differ dog to dog, but I tell people get a really good dryer, learn how to give a really good bath, and I can teach you. I'm happy to be that resource for you. Ask me any questions. And then I explain line brushing. I'm saying people will try to brush their dog, but they'll either be using the wrong tools or they won't be getting all the way down to the skin. So I give a lot of line brushing tutorials. I have a video that I send clients that breaks it down. And I also mainly give a lot of socialization techniques, especially when I have a client with a young puppy. And I do a puppy program where the dog comes in more frequently and I give them a bunch of mini grooms before their first big one. But
Hmm.
I also give a lot of homework where I say, for example, take a spoon to your puppy and, gently introduce the spoon around the puppy's eyes and face and give them treats and positive, praise for having the spoon around because the curved reflective metal surface imitates curved shears. And so that is a way that at home, safely, without having any sharp objects near a puppy's face, because, pet parents, not a professional, they if the dog jerks, you don't want to stab them in the eye. But that kind of simulation at home, or I instruct people, hey, practice a chin hold with like lightly, holding a little bit of the hair on the chin between two fingers, unless you have, a poodle with a shaved face, to keep their head still, or practice socializing to the feet. And I explain that doesn't just necessarily mean yanking their feet up out of nowhere. It does mean a structured socialization, and I walk them through how to do that. But my goal is to help create as many dogs as possible that are not only good for grooming but are actually genuinely comfortable and enjoy being up on the table. So I try to help pet parents accomplish that as much as possible as well.
Yeah, I think that going to the groomer is stressful for so many dogs, and
Mm-hmm.
it's something that takes a lot out of a dog. I know that, many years ago when I was taking Max Lieberman and Jane Austen to the groomer, not to Marlena, but to a different groomer, they would come home and be very worn out, just exhausted.
Yeah.
And I think people underestimate the stress of the noise. I mean, I have to be honest, I wear headphones,
Oh
ear
yeah.
protection in when I'm grooming, and dogs don't have that. So dogs that are not used to it really can find it a challenging environment.
Absolutely.
Um, So I am so grateful that you had time to come on the podcast. It's really been nice getting to know you, and I hope to see you at the next Poodles in the Park.
Oh
But I
yes.
really, yeah, I really just enjoyed. I enjoy your posts that are so deliberately cheerful, even silly. I love that you are being lighthearted and intentionally lighthearted about how you present yourself to the world. It's very
Oh,
nice.
thank you. Yeah, I feel like I mean, the world in general, but specifically dogs and dog community, it's just so much better when we lift people up. I mean, there's so many people that are gatekeepy or, finger pointy or just so quick to anger in a situation that it doesn't really need it. Especially surrounding doodles. And my first thing that I always tell people when I'm in a conversation, specifically when doodles come up, I'll say, I don't agree with the ethics behind their breeding, but there's so much active misinformation out there. I'm someone that bought, a doodle from a breeder before I knew about ethical breeding. And so I will never judge someone that did the same. So when, I have clients that come to me, I have actually quite a few clients that have either backyard bred dogs or rescues, which I have no shame against rescues. I love rescuing. I would love to be a long term shelter foster when I have my own home and I'm no longer renting, or doodles or things like that. And they have conversations with me, and now they're like, "Well, actually, I would love to get a well-bred dog." And I'm like, listen, I'm happy to be a resource for you. I love doing research on that kind of a thing. I think eventually I really need to add a blog to my grooming website that's like a tip source on questions to ask, breeders, or how to find an ethical breeder, because there's so much active misinformation out there that I'm like, trying to be an open resource to people, but coming from a place of support, not judgment.
Right.
I think people receive it much better that way.
And it is a very good point. The doodle owners don't care that their dogs are doodles, really. They just love their dogs,
Yeah.
regardless of what their dog, whatever dog, we all love our dogs.
Oh,
So,
yes. And I think it's easier for people to have those conversations with me because I have a doodle that is like my heart dog, and I love her to the ends of the earth. And so I think when I'm having these conversations with people and I can be like, listen, I'm not saying that a badly bred dog can't be the best dog ever, because listen, I have a badly bred dog and she is the best dog ever. But she was also diagnosed with cancer at 3 years old. And I'll also tell you, the top most 5 aggressive dogs that I work with, 4 of them are doodles. Some of the best dogs that I groom are also doodles. But I will say, like, temperamentally, out of the top 5 most aggressive dogs I groom, 4 are doodles. So
mm,
take that anecdotal, bit with what you will.
right,
But
right.
people take it less personally when I'm like, I have a doodle myself and I love her to bits. So when I'm saying this to you, I'm
Yeah,
not attacking your dog. We're just having a conversation about, dogs.
right. Well, I'm really grateful that you had time to talk to me tonight. I know that people will find it interesting to talk to someone who's relatively new in their career and building things and has great hopes and is bringing a really great, fresh perspective to the grooming industry. So thank you
Oh,
for
thank
joining
you.
me
Yeah.
tonight.
Oh, it's a delight talking with you. Thank you.
No, not at all. It was really wonderful. Thanks. Thanks for listening, and remember, a poodle will change your life.